Dollar Man said she tricked us. I'm here. Stop it. She's having technical difficulty. It's 5 minutes. Jeez. Anyway, you guys, listen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know if you guys got the intro. Listen, there's new updates in the Nolan Wells case, okay? We need to start at the beginning. We need to revisit it because Nolan Wells' mom's interview, his parents' interview, actually gave us a roadmap to what we need to see, what we need to hear, and what's going on. We're also going to go by to 400 Frames, who did a great investigative work on the way that even Officer Tatum is going to be pulled into this. And these subpoenas flying are deeper than you think, okay? Where should we start? Should we revisit the interview first? Or actually, let's get into 400 Frames. Is everybody in the room? Let's get into this. I'm really excited about this because I think we need to go back and deconstruct interviews. But in the meantime, let's start off with yes, it is a late night. Let's start with 400 Frames. I was actually researching this and got excited and wanted to share this with you guys. But with no further ado, let's get into this, okay? But let me do my intro. You guys, forget everything you know in the Nolan Wells case because what I have, y'all know my intro. Let's get into 400 Frames, okay?
Did y'all catch this?
You saying during that time?
Now, listen, just to cue this up, we are revisiting all the old interviews. We are bringing everybody up to date about what's going on in the Nolan Wells case, and we are showing the legal roadmap. For anybody saying, stop giving up secrets, listen, lawyers on the other side are no fools. They already know the roadmap. But like I said before in my last video, they are playing a dangerous game, and it seems to be a desperate game. Hear me out, right? What they are doing could easily be construed as jury pool poisoning. It's not the same as jury tampering. Jury pool poisoning, which means you are putting out this information. You are putting out threats. You're putting out all this stuff in an effort to sway the jury pool. Why? Because they are making a massive gamble that as long as they have the locals on check, nothing else will happen. What is jury pool poisoning? It's when you put out interviews, not suing people, but threatening people to sue, right? They threaten Al Sharpton. They threaten Nancy Grace, which, do you know how many cease and desist Nancy Grace, Al Sharpton, all of them go through? I've never seen a criminal, ever, in my life, and I'm not saying they're criminals, but I've never in my life seen anybody accused of doing anything. And in my life, I've never seen them come out and be like, well, you got me. You got me. You got me. You know, you got me. I did it. I did it. And I'm deeply ashamed. In my life, I've never seen that happen. So whether these people are guilty or innocent, I think we know if they are guilty, they ain't going to admit to it. So it is what it is. That's why there's detectives. That's why there's police trials. That's why there's arrest. Because you got to search for the truth. Because the guilty people never, ever, ever, ever admit, right? Sorry, guys. Just got a text. The guilty people never, ever, ever admit. But here's my point, right? They are, the defense, in my opinion, it's all my opinion, they're playing a very dangerous game because going back to jury poisoning, all the stuff they're putting out, oh, we're going to sue all these powerful people. Oh, this is a grift. Oh, they're not cooperating. These sound bites are not for us. We're trying to get to the truth. The sound bites are for the people that look at Nolan Wells' picture, look at Nolan Wells' mama, look at Nolan Wells' family, and they're annoyed. How dare you moon crickets ask for anything? How dare you? Didn't we tell you what happened to your son? Why are you bothering us? Autopsy for what? I, as a sheriff, doing an eye check, already know how your son died. He's a drunkard, and he was swimming. A what? An autopsy for what? Those sound bites are for people that look at Christine Wells, and for some reason, they are annoyed in their soul that she won't shut up and sit down and that she's asking questions. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much they say, it really does come down to a mom said, well, hold on. How did my son die? He drowned. I'm going to need more information than that. Where was he? Who was he around? How did he drown? What was he even doing out here? And after that, this whole media circus started because she asked those questions. Again, the people in their hearts that when you look in the comment section and they're like, oh, don't you know? It's a thing. Clearly he was drinking. They are the people that already had a predetermined thought of what Nolan deserved, and anything they can get in the media to grab hold of that is what they will. Do you know what I'm saying? They already think that somehow he was responsible. Somehow the mom's being aggressive. And I don't care what y'all say. I know there's some people being like, she's not even black. She's half Filipino. I don't understand. And when I hear people say that, I'm like, black. And by black, I mean ethnicity, phenotype, and culture. Okay? Because I don't understand how people grew up in America don't understand that race is a social construct. You realize that, right? You realize that, right? Like, you realize that you can be as pale as you want. If they know, right? That you got a drop of black blood in you down in those states, you are considered black. I don't care. It's like people come in and it's like race is not about color. It's a social construct to the extent that when they look at Nolan Wells' mama, they see a black woman. Black people might look at her and be like, oh, well, she's half Filipino. They see brown skin, black child, she black. And that's the end of it, right? So she will be treated. And I'm not saying Filipinos get treated any better in Mississippi, but I'm just saying they look at her and they're like, she looked black to me. She got a black child. She got a black husband. She black. She's black. She got brown skin. I don't even want to know. What flavor moon cricket are you is what they're asking. But here's my point, right? So they're going to treat her as, and she is a black woman. I don't think she's ever come out and said, I'm not black, because she grew up in the South and she knows what it is. And if you actually go back to a lot of these, when people are like, oh my God, you need to go back. But this is why I think a lot of people saying this never grew up in America, because you need to go back to the history of slavery. Yes, we have many phenotypes. Yes, we have many genetic expression, but being black in America is race, phenotype, right? I'm sorry, culture, phenotype, and skin culture. I'm sorry, skin color, all wrapped up into one. But let me bring it back, right? This jury poisoning. They're trying to put out narratives that people that already were annoyed that she even dared speak up have something to grab onto. That's it. And you can give them all the truth you want. You can give them all the, no, you don't understand. They don't want to understand. She's already a problem. Call her a grifter, call her this, that. Perfect. Got an excuse. Why are they doing that? Because, like I said in my last video, they think they got everything locked down. They really think they got everything locked down because as long as it says state level, that DA lives in Ocean Springs. As long as it says state level, they have the governor, they have the mayor, they have everybody on their side. But what they didn't account for is the fact, or maybe what they were afraid of, I think, was that she was going to take it to federal. She was going to take it to federal because when it goes to federal, right, it goes out of Jackson County and it goes to Gulfport. There's 3 federal districts. Every state is sent into federal, split into federal districts, right? There's 3 federal districts, right? There's Gulfport, which is majority white. I think it's only 21% black by quota. Gulfport is very, very closed off. Everybody knows each other. Like they said, Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back. It's a good chance there won't be any black people in the jury. And I don't care what anyone says. We all know what Mississippi's, I would even say it's not their past. We all know what Mississippi's current is. We all know what Mississippi's current is, right? Even that false narrative they put out there, first of all, nobody's drowned in Horn Island in 6 years, even though it is a hotspot for drinking, debauchery, partying, whatever. Now, they even tried to say, no, somebody died last year. We said of drowning, the only person that died last year was this guy that tried to dive head first off of his boat into shallow water. Him diving head first caused injuries, right? And he unfortunately passed away, but he didn't drown. He dived headfirst into shallow water, which will delete most people. Now, some people say, oh my God, maybe that's what happened to Nolan. Maybe, but I doubt it, right? Maybe, but I doubt it. And if he did dive off a boat headfirst and it caused injury to him, why would his friends pull off, right? But my point is, no one's died on that island in 6 years. The locals know that. His friends know that. The attorneys know that. And what's more, the coroner and the sheriff knows that. Now, why is that so amazing? Because if nobody's died in 6 years to a place hundreds of thousands of people go every year, that means statistically, drowning is such a small statistical unlikelihood that it's actually weird that a strong young athlete who knows how to swim would literally wind up on shore in the exact same place they said he left him. That alone is an anomaly that the sheriff should have investigated. Do you know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's weird. It's almost like a black person doing suicide by climbing up to a tree and hanging themselves. It's weird for a black person in America, a black American to actually, I'm not going to say black America, for an American, because we were actually here first before, I think we were here first before anybody, except, of course, the indigenous, right? But I'm talking about like the other immigrants that rolled in. A lot of these people that want to do this, want to do that, we can trace our roots back. I think most people in Gulfport are transplants and can't, okay? But my point of the saying is, right, the sheriff should have investigated. It was an anomaly. They didn't handle anything correctly. But again, they're going back into the jury poisoning. And why is this important? Because I said in my last video, there's something, it's a Mississippi, I think it's a civil rule, 3.6 for jury poisoning, that if they are putting out statements that are coloring the way the average person in Mississippi actually sees things, well then, right? In the federal courts, it can be removed, not out of state. That's very hard to do, very hard. And there's no reason to remove it out of state because Christine and her family right now have a residence. Residency is where you reside, not where you actually are. The death happened in a federal waters. On federal island in Mississippi and federal island in Mississippi. And all the potential suspects, if there is foul play, live in Mississippi. So it can't be moved out of Mississippi, unfortunately. However, if they can show very easily that there was collusion, that there's a poisoning of the jury, that there is concerted effort, and that they cannot get a neutral jury in Ocean Springs, it can be moved to a different federal district. Now, why is that important? Because like I said in my last video, the federal districts actually show you what the jury selection will be, right? In Ocean Springs and Gulfport, which is the federal district, it's only 21% black, okay? Very small. There's a good chance for jury selection. There's barely any black people in the jury. But then you go, I think it's Hyatt, and that number jumps to 52%. Now, granted, I don't know what goes on in Mississippi. There might be a lot of people like Officer Django or that barber that's saying, like, you know, we got that barber, like that barber who was like, oh, you know, there's no racism because they let us breed with white women. Okay, look at you, Mr. Martin Luther King, right? It goes up to 52%. But when you get into Jackson, I believe, Jacksonville or Jackson, Mississippi, which is the other federal district, you're now dealing with 82% black population, which means there's a good chance that if it gets removed to there, and it looks like it might be because of the way the defense has been acting, you now have a chance for the majority of the, what do you call it? The jury to be at least half black. It might even be 82% because don't forget, you got to get a representation of the community. So I think the lawyers are playing a very, very, very dangerous game. A very, very, very dangerous game. But I think again, going back to it, I think it's the only game they can play because I think they're getting desperate. I think it's very go big or go home. I think it's weird that they want to bully everybody. I think it's weird that they're threatening everybody. I think it's just weird. But anyway, you guys, we'll get back to this. Let me put on the 400 frames because I know some of y'all have to go to sleep. I see you in the comments. Let me put on 400 frames. And this is 400 frames on TikTok. You guys, I will be covering the Tupac trial this week. I've just been really, really busy. And to be honest with you, the Nolan Wells thing has become my obsession. It's become my obsession, but there are other things going on in the world. So I will be covering the Tupac trial this week. Now, let's get into 400 frames. He is on TikTok. He is incredible at what he does. Let me just make this a little bigger. And you guys turn your volume up because we've done the research, but I think he does a really good job. He's an editor, a video editor. And I think he does a really good job of piecing together things little by little. So let's listen to this, and then we're going to get into Nolan Wall's parents' interview. All right, listen.
You saying during that time, a portion of that, Wyatt was on the phone with Cito. So a portion of that is the Cito call, and that Nolan is not on that boat.
Correct.
So I was a video journalist for about 7 years, and I've done hundreds of interviews. These are not interviews. These are scripted productions. And
Again, just pause. Keep in mind what he says about scripted productions because there's evidence. It hasn't been verified, but there's screenshots of Judge Ashley Cole literally in Officer Tatum's comment saying, "Hey, I sent you a message. Please check." Why is this important? Because in order to get it moved out of the federal court of Gulfport and get it moved to some other place, there 100% has to be also some type of collusion. Is there? We don't know. But when they get these subpoenas and they subpoena phone records, and now that Officer Tatum literally went on record and put out this information and asserted and then went on a media tour to assert the truth of the matter, asserted, right? Now it falls under the subpoena. I also think this is why Officer Tatum backed off and was like, "Hey, I want to apologize to Christine Wells, when we go in this and that," because I think he got actually the subpoena notices too. And that means they're going to get the full unedited version, not only of these interviews, but also all phone messages back and forth, all things. Again, were you trying to get your story out, or was this a finely crafted piece of propaganda? I would say copaganda, but nobody knows if he's actually a cop or not. But let's continue. Sorry, you guys. Let's continue.
you can make something seem like a fact just by how you frame the question. Notice how vague this is.
During that time, a portion of that, Wyatt was on the phone with Cito. So a portion of that is the Cito call.
And then he says,
That video that's out there is a representation of who was on the boat during that Cito call.
so instead of you saying this is what happened, you're saying this is a representation, which means that this could have happened at any time, or it could be a simple reenactment. Anytime someone gives them, the friends or even Tatum, a direct question, they soften their claim.
And that is the moment that he is calling Cito and being towed.
It has to be some portion of it. The video that I saw was, I think it was a Snapchat.
Okay, pause, because we're going to go into another video of 400 frames. But this is why. So he used to be a video journalist. He also does editing. He also does this. Okay. And this is why we're revisiting Nolan Parent's interview, because I think it is a roadmap for justice. Okay. And I think they're telling us and this is what the boys are fighting against. And by the boys, I mean their attorneys. Okay. But do you see what he said? Do you see what Officer Tatum, their biggest supporter, their visit advocate, they're busy, "No, master, I'll save you." Do you see what he actually said in the interview that everybody missed? They show pictures of them standing on the boat. And Wyatt, which always looked crazy to me, Wyatt on the phone like this. And he's on the boat like this, holding onto the steering wheel. And he's on the boat. And he's on the boat. And that always looked crazy to me. Because I'm like, why is everybody standing there? Why is everybody looking down? Why is Wyatt on the boat like that? That's how he's calling Cito? And they said in the interview, this is a representation of what happened, which is why nobody wants to get the timestamps. Nobody wants to get the geodata. They just want to present it to these shows, sight unquestioned, and guess what? You better believe it, or we're suing everybody because it's defamation. What's defamation? Asking questions. Nobody said they were guilty. We just want to know why nothing's adding up, why there's no timestamps, why there's no metadata, why you're showing us screenshots of screenshots, and more important, why Officer Tatum himself said, so this is a representation of what happened? What in the Scooby-Doo mystery are we talking? A representation? What is going on? That means that they recreated a scene in order to represent what could have. Like, this is some true crime TV. You know, true crime when they be like, Sally came home that day, but little did she know her husband had other plans for her, right? And you see the actor coming in, honey, I'm home, right? That's a representation. So what are you talking about? Let me just rewind this in case y'all didn't catch it because it blew my mind too. Hold on, y'all.
Did y'all catch this?
You saying during that time, a portion of that, Wyatt was on the phone with Cito, so a portion of that is the Cito call, and that Nolan is not on that boat.
Correct.
So I was a video journalist for about 7 years, and I've done hundreds of interviews. These are not.
But did you see the way Officer DeJango set it up real smooth? So you're saying a portion of this video, right? A portion of this video where Wyatt's on the phone, Nolan is not on the boat. And they're like, correct. Okay. So it leads you to believe, so Nolan wasn't on the boat, right? But then listen.
Interviews. These are scripted productions, and you can make something seem like a fact just by how you frame the question. Notice how vague this is.
During that time, a portion of that, Wyatt was on the phone with Cito, so a portion of that is the Cito call.
And then he says,
That video that's out there is a representation of who was on the boat during that Cito call.
so instead of you saying this is what happened, you're saying this is a representation, which means that this could have happened at any time, or it could be a simple reenactment. Anytime someone gives them, the friends, or even Tatum, a direct question, they soften their claim.
And that is the moment that he is calling Cito and being towed.
It has to be some portion of it. The video that I saw was, I think it was a Snapchat.
The video he saw was a Snapchat. Now, listen to how smooth this is. Because if it ever comes out, right, that what they said happened didn't happen, it cannot be used in court. Well, it can be used. Anything can be used in court. But hear me out. They just told us in our faces that even though they presented it for the truth of the matter asserted as proof that Nolan wasn't on the boat and proof they didn't do anything. What they actually said in that interview was, right, that in that representation, not the actual video, but in that representation of who was on the boat, Nolan was not on the boat. You guys, that is very smooth because at the end of the day, that means that they didn't lie. That means that on that boat, for the representation they showed us, Nolan wasn't on the boat. Sorry if I keep confusing Warren with Nolan. Sorry. Nolan wasn't on the boat at all because that wasn't the boat with the Cito call. And they're showing a representation, a true crime mock-up, not what actually is. Also, really quick, Soldier for God 47, thank you so much for the super chat. And One Love Revolutionary, thank you for the super chat, mama. Okay, let's get into the next thing that 400 Frames discovered, and then we'll get into Nolan Parent's interview, because I don't know if you guys watched the full interview, but I think it's important that we revisit certain parts. Hold on, y'all.
I know y'all remember this.
You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Any corruption and cover-up
Really quick, I also want to give a shout out to Pretty Long Legs. Did you see Jay Megan's new YouTube? I did not. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You guys make sure you give a follow, but let's keep going. Sorry.
I think it was a Snapchat.
I know y'all remember this.
Okay, I
You
wanted
have
to
no idea who you're dealing with.
Any corruption and cover-up starts with your connections.
Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back.
And guess what town the DA lives in? Ocean Springs.
I understand the public's urgency to know what happened to Nolan, but we are not taking time for time's sake.
The Mississippi Rising Coalition recently posted this with questions on Facebook for the DA. One question, does the DA have any personal relationships with the friend's parents? And the second one, because she's involved in a lot of these local women's groups, even women's Republican groups, does she have any connection with Judge Ashley Cole? And would that be a conflict of interest? And asking if she should recuse herself from an investigation involving a child of one of her professional colleagues.
Okay, so let's get into it. Also, for a cover up to happen, there needs to be political things. Why is this important? Because I think more likely than not, the DA and Judge Ashley Cole have some type of personal relationship. One, they both live in Ocean Springs. Ocean Springs only has 19,000 people. Two, there's a judge and there's a DA. Should she recuse herself? If she does recuse herself from the case, who knows what'll happen? But this is enough for the civil rights investigation. It's enough for the, and even if you take the civil rights investigation off the thing, for the federal civil trial, it is enough for them to ask for a change of venue out of Gulfport, where they feel they cannot get a neutral trial. The DA, right? The sheriff's office, the DA, the police chief, the governor have all said with no proof that they considered A, B, and C. The DA's office seems to be leaking stuff because if it's not a leak, I don't understand how this whole narrative about them not turning over the phone and not cooperating came from. Because how would you know that they didn't turn over a phone? The DA said that they're not sharing information with anybody about the case. So how would you know what's happening and what's not happening? But more importantly, when you can prove that in that venue, you cannot get a fair trial, you can request to be moved to a different venue. Any other district in Mississippi will be more favorable to get people that at least on the jury look like Nolan and his parents. Now, I know what you're saying. They could be Officer Django's. True. They could be like that barber talking about, we's are free because we sleep with white women. When he said that, I was like, because listen, I don't give a damn about interracial relationships. Love who you love. Be with the person that treats you best. That's not it. I'm talking about literally looking at growing up in Mississippi. It's like, did you drop out in not even 8th grade? Did you drop out in 3rd grade? You grew up in Mississippi. If you knew your state's not even history, but the current stuff, you would know that there's a lot of mess going on. But the way you say that there is equal rights is there's a bunch of mixed children running around. And when that happened, I was like, have you been on mixed person Twitter? Especially white mom, mixed person Twitter. Now, I'm not saying all white moms to black children are issues, but have you been on mixed person white mom Twitter? They are in shambles. They all have stories. And what am I saying? And white dad. Stories about when their parents get mad at them. They're calling them the M word. They're doing this. They're doing that. I don't think it's a thing of freedom. You know, like lots of people marry and procreate with people that they despise and think are beneath them, you know? Hey, what's up, J Big? Thank you, J Big Ant. Said, blessed Miss Tisa T. Justice for Nolan. I know that's right. All right, you guys, listen. Now let's get into Nolan parents' interview because I feel like there's a lot of false information floating around. But as we listen to it, I'm going to juxtapose it with what we know now and what those boys actually said. And I think it's important we go through the whole interview instead of the sound bites, okay? And as I go through this, keep in mind what 400 Frames said about in order for a cover-up to happen. Keep in mind the ties to DA to Ocean Springs. Like Trayston said, Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back. And let's also point out the fact that all of the videos and pictures they gave us to represent what happened, to show us what happened and prove their version of the stories, they said in our faces with Officer Tatum that wasn't even actual video. It was a representation of who was on the boat that day and what happened. A representation. That means it was a reenactment. It was a reenactment. But anyway, unless I don't know what representation means, let's keep going into this, all right? Let me just press play, all right? Let's go.
So, Nolan.
Really quick, you guys, if you're wondering why I'm playing this interview, I think it's because a lot of people only listen to the sound bites, and I get it. I get it. I get it. But there's a lot in this interview. This is a 30-minute interview. There's a lot in this interview that I believe the other side doesn't want us to hear or see. There's Easter eggs that call things directly into question. Why is that important? Because the sheriff has always maintained, along with the governor and everybody else, that they followed proper procedure and everybody's overreacting. And we need to actually listen to what happened, the way she was treated, the way it reacted. And I'm not just talking about with those boys. I'm talking about the actual sheriff system, the same people that acted like they didn't want to search for Nolan. Then when they found Nolan, they said, looks like a drowning to me, even though his body wasn't bloated. The independent autopsy and the, who was it? The Cajun Navy both confirmed that Nolan's body wasn't bloated. Why is that an issue? Well, and they know that nobody's died from drowning in Horn Island in the last 6 years. And even before that, it was only a handful of people. Horn Island is actually incredibly safe. So that means that Warren saying, I know plenty of people that died. People die out here all the time. That was a lie. The coroner's own record showed that was a lie. That should have been enough to pique the police chief. But also his body wasn't bloated. What is the significance of that? Well, the reason they said that nobody saw, let me just give y'all a little bit of science in this. The reason they said that nobody saw Nolan after a busy July 4th weekend, because hundreds of thousands of people traveled around, right? According to them, right? The reason that's so significant is because for Horn Island to be that packed for the whole weekend, a body floating on the water would have been seen by someone, especially floating in the same area. Boats around, people are swimming. It would be very easy to see a body actually floating. Now, the counter to that, right? That every idiot in the comment section seems to be saying, like, no, you understand, he drowned, he went to the bottom, and then when he floated up, it was 2 days later, except for the fact that the Cajun Navy and the independent autopsy both noted that his body was not bloated at all. In order for you to sink to the bottom and float up, what happens is you get water in your lungs, all this other shit, and you float to the bottom. When your body starts decaying, inside your blood vessels, your veins, everything, gases, decomposition, those gases start bubbling up, all right? Because your body's decaying. As those gases start bubbling up, it makes your body buoyant, which is why in the old mobster movies, they would tie cement shoes onto people, put you in concrete blocks and throw you in, because when your body started decomposing, no, you stay down. Nolan's body, if it decomposed, and the decomposing with the gases makes your body bloat. And then from that bloating, you float up to the top. If your body is not bloated, that means that there is zero chance that you will float up to the top, because only with a bloated body can you float to the top. The fact that everybody that saw noted there was no bloating, that is ding, 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 ding. His body could have just, this isn't a natural drowning, right? But then two, I know what you're saying, Batista, they said that there's washing machine currents out there. So even though you say, oh my God, the washing machine currents could have put them up and pulled them down, all this other stuff, there's a flaw in that argument too. Because hear me out. Washing machine currents is exactly like a washing machine. And it says even on, when you Google the oceanography or whatever, right? It says that washing machine currents do defy the laws of bloating, because whatever is thrown to the bottom, the washing machine currents automatically bring them up to the top. Now, why is that important? Okay, fine. You could have drowned naturally in the washing machine currents, and that would have bulked your body up immediately, right? Because the washing machine current, your body can't stay down for 2 days. But however, on July 4th, he went missing. On July 5th, there were hundreds of, even thousands of people out with their boats docked on Horn Island. All right? The whole 4th of July weekend, it was a busy weekend for Horn Island. There is no way that somebody's body could have been floating in that area and not one person, either the boats coming in or going out, not one person noticed them. The odds of that happening are so thin. That's why it's relevant that the body was not bloated. Cajun Navy and the independent autopsy both point out that Nolan's body was not bloated, which means, right, there is a high chance that after the busy 4th of July weekend, if someone did something to Nolan, they would then throw his body back. Because isn't it funny that he was found after everyone left? This is after you were never on the ocean floor. So where were you? And the washing machine currents wouldn't allow you to stay on the first floor. So that's why it's so significant. Okay, I'll get back to the interview, but I just want you to know that's one of the things that actually came in on that thing. And the fact that the body was not bloated. Now, how can you tell if someone died? I know some people don't want to believe it, but drowning is one of the easiest things to diagnose in an autopsy. I'm not saying the way you drown. You could have been held under. You could have held yourself. Well, I don't think you can hold yourself under. It's against your survival instinct to drown. That's like why people can't choke their own selves to death, because your survival instinct will be like, and I don't want to disrespect anybody struggling with anything. Please call someone, call a national hotline, but your survival instinct kicks in and be like, okay, no, another way, right? When it comes to drowning, it's very, very, very easy to prove. You have water, maybe in your stomach, but you definitely have water in your airways, because once the water pierces through, it puts tiny individual ruptures in your airways, which some of the water seeps in before it finally overpowers you, and your air sacs actually explode, right? Tear open, and water flushes your system. When water flushes your system, your heart beats a few more times, but eventually your heart stops, okay? I'm not saying it keeps beating like you're Aquaman, but within like the water infiltrating your system, your heart will beat, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds more. Why is that important? Because diatom, right? Yes, we're going to science class. Just hear me out. Diatoms, they are microscopic algae. Now, you don't realize it, but it's very, very easy to find, hey, was somebody drowned in a tub and then thrown into the ocean? Was somebody drowned in the ocean and then thrown into a tub? How do they find that? Because whenever every body of water has its own distinct microcosms, its own fauna, its own flora, its own everything. And there's also microscopic organisms, living organisms, such as microscopic algae that exist in every single, that's how you can tell, hey, were you drowned in Mississippi or were you drowned in New York City? You can tell by the fauna, the flora, the microscopic organisms. So that's one. So let me just do this. Okay, so the diatom. I'm going to walk you through this and then we'll get back into the interview, right? So the diatom. Diatom enter into when you get those microscopic ruptures in your ear sacs before your heart stops. The water rushes into your bloodstream. That water is filled with microscopic organisms called diatoms. And because your heart pumps a few more times before you pass away, they get spread all through your body and your bloodways, right? Diatom, the microscopic algae, love porous surfaces. They immediately attach to the bone. They love it there. That is why when the first autopsy is done, right, you would take samples in the blood and you would also take samples in the bone, because the diatom are actually, they attach themselves to the bone. And it's one of the easiest ways and the most prevalent ways to tell that somebody actually drowned. It's actually impossible to drown in a river, ocean, whatever, and not have the diatom. Because if you don't have the diatom in your blood or on your bone, there's a good chance investigators need to see, was the body dumped? Was the body moved? Because only in a bathtub or something that has like, filtered water could there be no diatom. Why is that important? If you notice, when you check for diatom and all this stuff, they have a limited lifespan. The first autopsy, you need the tissue samples, you need the bone samples, you need to know those investigations to see if they found diatom present. If they did find diatom present, okay, fine. There's a good chance he actually drowned, like he died from drowning. Now, whether it was accidental, that's something. They refused to share that information with the second independent autopsy. Also, the contents of the stomach. When you drown, usually water actually enters your stomach too because you're gulping. In that entering your stomach, there should be indigenous microscopic fauna, flora, algae from that waterway that's actually in your stomach. On top of that, if there's any food, you can look at it takes 4 or 5 hours for somebody to digest food. You can actually look at the last food they ate and how long, either before or after they ate, when they passed away. There's a lot of information, right? But it's also the easiest way to show of drowning. Interesting enough, not only were they not let them inspect the stomach or the lungs to see if there's any microscopic tears in the air sacs to prove that it's drowning. They say they won't even let them come and inspect it, and they won't share their findings either. That's why they're going through a civil lawsuit, because the civil lawsuit is going to force them to actually share it's going to force them to share their findings, okay? They won't share that. Now, everybody talks about the neck, right? How come you're withholding the neck? How come you won't share? I happen to think there might be more to it, because when you look at the neck missing and you look at that 12x8, withholding the neck, people don't realize this, but I've said it a million times. A lot of times domestic abusers get away with it because 70% of the time that somebody is strangled, right? 70% of the time, there's no bruising on the outside, okay? Out of that, 30% of the time, so you have 30% left, okay? So out of that 30%, where there might be some marks from somebody strangling you, out of that, only 68% of the time, even the pressure points of somebody being strangled are so light that 68% of that 30%, so 30% of the time you're like, okay, maybe there's a mark from strangulation. Out of that 30% that there's a mark, 68% of that time, the marks are too light to photograph. They don't show up, which is why a lot of domestic violence actually goes away, because people are like, I don't see a mark. That's not the way it works. When you actually strangle someone, the way, or even if you tried to strangle someone, the way you find it is by looking at the internal throat structures, because throats are very delicate. You don't need to be the Hulk or Thanos taking somebody down. You just need to apply enough pressure that the bone structures on the inside collapse, that the airway collapses. That's all you need. If somebody was put in a chokehold, right? Maybe that could be it. But getting back to this, everybody keeps talking about the throat. Why won't they either give them the results of the throat or let them see what happened to the throat? That's weird. It is. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. I've never even seen a DA withhold an autopsy, not even from the family, but letting a professional, a colleague, if you will, actually even bigger than a colleague, because baby, they are like the big dogs in DC for pathologists and forensics. And this is like what Stacey Turner, that little rinky-dink, in my opinion, rinky-dink corner. I don't know, in that thing. So hear me out. Let me get back on point. I believe that the factor withholding the lungs and the factor withholding the stomach is the biggest indication that maybe he didn't drown. Because I 100% believe, as much as the police chief is out here pushing a narrative that is his own speculation with no proof. Because the same way I can be like, I don't think it's a natural death, and people can be like, Tisa, shut up. Y'all know what you're talking about. I can say that to the police chief. You don't have not one autopsy. His body wasn't bloated. Nobody dies on Horn Island, no matter how many visitors, showing it is relatively safe. Nobody dies of drowning on the Horn Island, hardly. This looks very suspicious. But you got the governor, you got the police chief, you got the DA, you got Judge Ashley Cole, you got all these people being like, absolutely not. Here's my point. I believe that if they had an autopsy showing that, forget about whether the drowning was accidental, but if they had an autopsy showing that Nolan Wells had died from a drowning, and again, the diatom in the bone, the contents of the stomach, microorganisms, food, whatever, the contents of the air sac. Now, why are they withholding it from the second investigators? The second forensics. I don't know, but it seems like they have a problem with sharing information. But I do know that there's a lot of stuff in autopsies that over time naturally degrade. The diatom don't stay around forever. The microorganisms don't stay around forever. And the more you hold on to stuff, the more things degrade. Oddly enough, for a drowning, it's pretty simple. They should be able to perform this in-house. They also did an unprecedented thing where they completed their autopsy, but then they took the organs and instead of sharing it with Nolan's family, which just could have been as easy as, yeah, come to the coroner, and while we look over your shoulder, you can like inspect it, which would have been fair enough. They sent those organs down to an independent lab in Miami for them to get their opinion about what happened. Why, if a drowning is one of the most easiest things to explain, why are you now sending it down to a thing in Miami? Are you hoping they give you what do you think's going to happen? I think it is very reasonable to assert that if they had proof that he had water in his lungs, and also forget that when you throw somebody in to the water when they are dying or dead, they do not take the water in. The heart's not really pumping. The diatonic doesn't get in. That's how you can tell if somebody was placed in water after they died. I truly do believe that if they could prove that it was a drowning, accidental or whatever, they would have slapped us in the face with it. They are waiting. They would have slapped us in the face. They would have slapped us in the face with it. Here's your autopsy, moon crickets. Shut up. All that chirping, getting on my nerves. They would have 100% did that. But they didn't, and they haven't. And it leads me to think it's because they can't. Again, they keep talking about the integrity of investigation, but Chris Cuomo said he saw an autopsy that said he drowned from natural causes and that he was drunk. Well, where'd you see that autopsy? How come they can't release that to the parents? Because they keep saying it's a grift and the parents are being aggressive, but the parents just say as soon as we know what happened to our child, this is all over. But somehow knowing what happened to the child equals to assaulting Ocean Springs. So as we listen to the parents, this is their last day, but I think, and I'm going to let you listen to it just out of respect for the parents, but also I want you to listen to the police response, because to me, that's the most telling. It seemed like Ocean Springs, for whatever reason, was always trying to make this go away. And keep in mind that Miss Christine is she's not even a nurse practitioner. She's a nurse, but she has a PhD in nursing, which is the highest point you can go in nursing. She's a very well-respected member of the community, or so she thought. So listen to this. Let's get back into it. Oh wait, hold on. Is there no evidence? Wait, can you guys not hear that? Can you guys not hear that? No sound? Okay, hold on. I'll fix the sound. Sorry guys, let me fix the sound. Let me fix this sound. Hold on. Let's try this. Hold on. Because if not, we're going to have to wrap this up early. Let's see if the sound works now. Let me know if you guys hear the sound now. Okay, 1 second. Hold on.
Went to work, and he was making.
Can y'all hear it now?
So he was FaceTiming me as I'm trying to see patients, kind of in between. Of course, not answering the phone in the room. And he's like, "Hey, Mama, how does this look? Is this enough season? Like, what am I supposed to do with this?" And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "You don't have to do that." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna take care of it." I was like, "Okay, sure." And so he finishes cooking, get home. He's like, "Yeah."
Hold on. Can you guys put a 1 in the comments if you hear sound now? Put a 1 if you hear sound, please. Okay, you hear it now? Okay. All right. Cool. Let's keep going.
You know about this? And he was, guys, when I tell you, he loved to joke. Like, he was just one of those people. He wanted everyone around him to smile, be happy, feel comfortable and accepted. And that is the kind of person God made him. You know, us as parents, we definitely had that influence, but Nolan was just naturally a peacemaker. Yeah. And so, yeah, after that, it was, 8, and then he got ready to go. He did his normal, hugged us up, "I love you, Mom." I was like, be safe, knowing this was going to be his last weekend before going back to school, because football was starting, the summer training was starting. And this was his second year at Southwest, and so we knew this was going to be a big year for him. Dad and him had been training and doing all these things and really just kind of sitting with him and letting him know, like, hey, we're going to the next stage in your life as well as, your football career. So the focus was there, and he was ready.
So he leaves that day.
He leaves that day with, he drives his car, and he told us kind of a general, like, hey, we're going to go to the island. Like, we knew that, staying at Jack's house. And Jack's was a friend I think we've met in passing before. And that's the thing, I always say there's a difference in meeting someone, knowing of someone, and then knowing someone. Knowing implies that we've sat down, we've had discussions about your hopes, your dreams, knowing you, okay, hey, he stayed the night at my house, which...
Really quick, I just want to interrupt this whole knowing conversation because the boys at various points, right, some of them have accused or implied, in my opinion, that Miss Christine was being dishonest. You don't know me. You don't know me. You know me. And she's like, I don't know you guys. And this has become a real point of contention. Okay, fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, right? I think I was his best friend. His mama saying, no, you weren't. But as you listen to this about why she's over explaining how she knows these boys, keep in mind that on the day of Nolan's disappearance, please keep in mind, on the day of Nolan's disappearance, when the police showed up at Jax's house, somebody she knows in passing, for everybody being like, oh, Nolan was 18. He was going to community college. I mean, come on, at 18, right? Sometimes your parents know of your friends. Now, granted, it would say they weren't that good friends, that he wasn't like, the homie coming over to the house and eating dinner and whatnot. But my point in saying all this is when the police came to their house, Jax's house, and they questioned those boys, Katie, who they all knew, Trayson said he knew Katie because he dabbed Nolan up on his way out and said some slick shit to him about Katie because he used to mess with Katie, right? Warren said in the interview, yeah, he was over there cradling that Katie girl and he said he was staying with her, right? And I was like, oh, you sound like a hater, but whatever, right? Maybe that's just my interpretation. Y'all knew who she was. And in that night, you were texting Katie, being like, hey, which, by the way, they won't release those texts. Hey, isn't Nolan with you? And that's when Katie was like, Nolan wasn't with me. He said he was leaving with you guys. What are you talking about, right? Mysteriously, Katie, Javon, nobody saw Nolan after that boat left. Amazingly, right? But my whole point is they're trying to put her over things on whether she knew them. When those boys, some of them told the police that Nolan was left with an unidentified woman. An unidentified woman. When y'all not only knew who she was, but you had her phone number and you were texting her. But you told the police when they were literally starting the search for a missing boy, your friend who you called his mom and said, hey, we're really worried about him missing. You told the police that he was with an unidentified woman. And then someone gave them a lead of who that unidentified woman is. And they still didn't say Katie's name. They said somebody named Laney's name. The MDR went and started doing door knocks, following up on leads like, okay, where could he be? Right? They went to that Laney girl's house that those boys that said, oh, maybe it was Laney, even though everybody knew it was Katie because they even told us in the interview, he's cradling that Katie girl. And Laney looked at the MDMR and was like, I know who Nolan is, yeah, but I haven't seen or spoken to him in a year. And on top of that, I was at Petite Boyce Island, not at Horn Island. And this is who the police. And the thing is, had they been, in my opinion, honest to the police and gave them Katie's name, the search for Nolan could have gotten kicked off a lot earlier. So again, I just find it funny that everyone is trying to turn her into a liar. Oh, you said you don't know us, but everybody's skipping over the fact that y'all, not only did y'all say y'all didn't know Katie, but y'all even told the police she was an unidentified woman and gave the wrong name. And then in the officer paid on part, I don't know, whatever interview, y'all had the nerve to be like, well, we didn't know Katie like that. I mean, we knew her, but we weren't close to her, but you were texting her. Again, seems to be a rule for thee and not for me. You see what I'm saying? They are literally making a grieving woman into making her, I think, trying to imply that she's a liar and doing all this other stuff when they're actually doing worse. So if she's lying, right, and misleading people according to those people that's saying that, then doesn't that make the boys also liars? And if the boys are also lying, the one thing we can say is Miss Christine had nothing to do with Nolan's disappearance. But those boys, again, it's another lie. If we treat everybody like the same standard, and Miss Christine's lying, that means those boys lie too. And by their own metrics, and those boys' lies are stopping investigation from moving forward. Just a thought. Just a thought. Just a thought. Just a thought. Okay, let's keep going. Sorry, really quick. I want to say hey, Valentine TV. I want to say thank you to the super chats. Valentine TV, thank you very much for being a member for 32 months. You said great job. Thank you. Because it is a difference in knowing someone. It 100% is. And also, Valentine, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Sorry. I almost clicked off the stream. I sorry I had to read the message. I'm like, what's the stream telling me? Okay, let's get back to work. Sorry, guys.
His friends, he had stayed at our house a couple of times. And then Jax, again, that was one I just maybe saw in passing a few times. There was only a handful of young men that we actually knew, like he grew up with. And when I say grew up, I'm saying from like first grade, they've known each other all through high school now that they're graduated. And that would be like Jalen and Javon, LeBaron. Those are kids that we knew. So it's been hard seeing all this kind of play out.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are people that he considered friends.
Yes. Dad, I want to ask you, because it was Warren Hudson, one of the people that he traveled with, who called to alert you all that Nolan was missing.
Yes.
So we know at 5:44, the boat returns, Nolan is not there. At 11 p.m., he calls to say Nolan is missing. I wonder if either of you, whoever wants to answer, what happened in those few hours that prompted Warren to be concerned?
I'm not quite sure what would prompt him to be concerned, but all I can say is what I did that day. So me and my sister, we made an order of pancit, which is a Filipino noodle dish for one of our friends. They were having a big family get-together, and we really didn't have anything planned for the 4th. So me and my sister are, you know, cleaning up, and this is about 8. And she's like, hey, you know, Nolan hasn't texted us. Like, and that was the thing. Nolan was really big with communication with us, right? And so I call him, doesn't answer. I end the call. call back, and this is probably, I think, maybe around 8. Don't quote me on the times, guys. So then I call again later around 8, still no answer. And then I want to say I called one more time, and I think that was at like 10:48. So I'm in the kitchen, my phone rings. Now this is probably like early 11 o'clock, somewhere around there. Phone rings when I make it back to the phone, and I'm like, whose number is this? Because, you know, we get weird phone calls sometimes. They didn't leave a message. Number pops back up. I pick up the phone because it says maybe Warren. And I'm like, Warren? So this is 11:07. That's per my cell phone records. So I answer the phone. He's like, hey, Miss Christine, have you seen or talked to Nolan? I said, no. Why? He should be with you guys. And he said, oh, no, well, you know, when we went to the island, there was a girl named Katie that he met, and he had decided to stay behind. And I said, what?
Again,
Because
he told her mom, his mom, Warren told Miss Christine at 11 when sorry, my mic's going dead. At 11 when they called that he stayed back with Katie. But when the police showed up at the house to question all of them, Nolan's so-called friends, at 1:38 a.m. in the morning, you said that they said it was an unidentified woman and they didn't know who it was. They don't want to give the police Katie's information. Again, is it suspicious? Yeah. Does it make sense? No. Does it mean anything? I don't know. But again, we are just asking them to figure out, to make their alibis make sense. Not even alibis, stories. Okay, let's continue.
know our child. And Nolan isn't one to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and I'm going to stay here with this girl that I just met. So I'm on the phone with him. Now I'm in a panic. I'm running into my room. Elmore was in bed watching a different movie, and I'm like frantic. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, Nolan is missing. I'm trying to pull up the GPS as I'm talking to him. And at some point, he tells me that, I was like, well, you know, his phone says GPS Life 360, not Snapchat.
Right.
Life 360 says that he's on land. And he was like, well, no, I mean, you know, well, we have his phone. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay. Because at that point, you're telling...
Again, I just want to keep underlining things. When she heard he's missing, while Warren was on the phone with his mom, with Nolan's mom, she ran into the room, got on her computer, and pulled up LifeLock, which is kind of like a family Find My iPhone, right? And she said to Warren, but his phone's on the land, which honestly, I wonder if she regrets saying that. Because only then did Warren admit, oh, no, we have his phone. Why wouldn't you lead with that? We're worried. We haven't seen him. We have his phone. We have his shirt. We have his shoes. I'm worried about him. Now, for those people saying, oh, what 18-year-old calls another person's mom? Especially if you think that he's out having fun with a girl. What calls their mom saying, hey, I'm worried about him? Again, I'm not saying that it was setting up an alibi, but does it not sound like an alibi? Because what? I mean, listen, maybe they breed 18-year-olds different in Mississippi. I know when I was 18, we were not calling anybody's mom worried about them. Not for stuff like that. Are you insane? We would go investigate on our own. But like, why are you calling my mom looking for me when you yourself are telling police he's probably drunk after having fun with a girl? But anyway, this is why she freaked out. So let's keep going. Let's keep going, right? Again, it's weird. Now you don't tell the mom, we have his shoes, we have his shirt, we have his phone, and we got his car keys. You have to wait for her to be on the phone and be like, but it says he's on land. Yeah, but we have his phone. So let's keep continuing. All right.
This is coming from Warren. Don't worry about it. We're going to find him. It's going to be okay. Don't tell me not to worry. This is my child, my flesh and blood that I brought into this world. And you're telling me not to worry. Absolutely not. So then it was after the phone call ended, of course, asking him for information. What was he wearing? He was like, last seen, Northwest tip, black shorts, sunglasses. That's important. So I end up calling DMR, spoke with the DMR. She took all
Just for our audience, DMR.
So DMR is because he went missing on the island. They are basically the marine people, right? They're the ones who's going to launch the boats to go into the water and all that. But before getting off the phone with Warren, he was like, hey, I know some people at Coast Guard. I said, okay. He's like, I'm going to call Coast Guard, you call DMR. Get on the phone with DMR. I give the young lady the information.
Down, pause. Warren, in my opinion, based off of what Ms. Crane led her to believe that, because we all know how Southern I know people in Coast Guard. So it sounded like he was telling her, don't worry about calling the Coast Guard. I got that. You go do MDMR. Then we find out days later, he never really placed a call. He was on the phone for 20 minutes with the Coast Guard, but was it on a recorded line? What are you talking about? And whatever you told Miss Christine, you told the authorities the exact opposite, because it's literally in the report that the police were like, oh, we're not going to pursue this because we don't think he's really missing. Now, also keep in mind that around the next day that Nolan didn't pop up, MDNR seemed to be the only people that were questioning. They were knocking on doors, found out the unidentified woman who was Katie that they all knew. They gave a different name, Lainey. Lainey hadn't seen them. The other two people they said was around weren't at their homes. So they went to Wyatt's home. And Wyatt wasn't there, but Wyatt's mama was like, yo, the police, he's already cooperated. And the police, and MDR, with the police. And MDR is like, all right, cool, but do you mind if we take a look at the boat and take pictures of the coordinates? And she was like, okay. But as they were doing that, and MDR really was, and thanks to those coordinates, we now see that they were still on Horn Island docked. The same place they had been docked since 11:15 when they made the CTO call at 4 o'clock. How are you still docked on land at 4 o'clock talking about you sinking? And then 30 minutes later, you go out into the middle of the ocean. Anyway, right? When those GPS coordinates are the only link to the truth that we have, it can't be denied as far as I know. At that moment when they were there taking pictures of the boat and investigating, they got a call from local Jackson County police, right? Saying, stand down. We're taking over the investigation. MDNR was investigating and they told them to stand down. And honestly, that call to stand down came only after they popped up at Wyatt's house. Because like his mom said, he's already been questioned by the police. And MDR was like, okay, but it's federal land and we're doing our own investigation. And they were told to stand down. Again, is it odd that that happened? I think so. Is it weird it happened? Yeah. Does it mean that Wyatt is guilty or not? I don't know. But I just know it doesn't make sense. Okay, but let's get back in Miss Christine's interview. Hold on, y'all.
And she tells me, hey, you know, I got this. Let me call you back. Because she was like, I'm not sure if this is going to be in our jurisdiction, essentially. So then she calls back and she tells me, okay, yeah, you know, we spoke with Coast Guard. And I'm like, okay, but they're like, this isn't our jurisdiction. You have to contact the city of Ocean Springs. I said, okay, hang up the phone, call in Ocean Springs Police Department. They say, hey, you have to physically come down and give a report. I said, okay. So on our way, because we don't live that far from the police station, on our way there, I was like, well, let me stop by the hospital, because there's a hospital that's maybe 5 minutes up the road from our house. Stop by there. I'm like, hey, have you guys seen this kid? Has he been brought in? The lady's like, no, ma'am, you know, we hadn't. I said, okay, thank you. Run out. We go to the police department. Get to the police station, and the officer basically says, again, this is out of our jurisdiction. And at that point, I'm like, my God, who am I supposed to talk to? Who is supposed to help me with this? So then he said, it's going to be, you would have to call DMR. I was like, we've already called DMR. DMR said it's not in their jurisdiction. So we end up, I think at some point I had called Jackson.
Again, it seems like she's getting the runaround. MDNR tells her to call the police, which might have been the right thing to do, right? She calls the police. The police are like, oh, well, you got to come down here to make the report. So she runs to the police station to make the report. And then the police after they told her to come down and make the report, looks at her and it's like, this isn't our jurisdiction. If it wasn't your MF jurisdiction, then why did you have us come in person? Why didn't you tell us over the phone, this isn't our jurisdiction, so there's no point in you coming down. Call the MDMR. Why are they going back and forth? Why is this nobody's jurisdiction? Maybe it was the Coast Guard's jurisdiction. But Warren said that he was handling that. Do you see? Again, already from the beginning, the town was just acting like it didn't care. And let me just say this, even when they're running down to make those reports, how is it that a bunch of 18-year-olds that were drinking and partying, I don't think that Nolan was, but we saw pictures of Warren holding what looked like to be alcoholic beverage. I could be wrong, but it looked like something that could be an alcoholic beverage, right? But if my suspicions are accurate, they've been drinking and partying. And also, who, if they are partying, who gave them the alcohol? Another question, but we don't know if they were partying. But they have been drinking and doing their own thing all day. That's what some of the reports are saying. Why are you believing those 18-year-olds over a mother that is freaking out? Do you see in Ocean Springs, right? These boys, and they are boys, who, and witnesses, boys and girls who were potential witnesses, or they are valuable to the investigation. When a mom is insisting that there's something wrong with her child, that he is missing, why did they take these children's word for it over the mother? Is it weird? Yes. Is it odd? Absolutely. Does it mean they did anything? Not necessarily. But again, I've never, like, when I was 18, they would never take my word over an adult, especially when the adult is pushing. But again, it is what it is. Let's keep going into this. 1 second.
County Sheriff's Office, yeah. So she calls back and she's like, hey, are you there? I say, yes, we're here, but he's telling us the same thing you guys told us, which is no, we can't take it. She gets on the phone with a police officer. Now, this is Jackson County Sheriff's Department speaking with the Ocean Springs Police Department. Ocean Springs Police Department is saying, this is why we can't take this information. She says, okay. He gives me the phone back. And she's like, okay, I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take the information.
Now, isn't it odd that they're telling her they can't even take a report? Not that it's out of our jurisdiction. You can't even take a report? As far as I know, when you call any police department, sheriff's department, whatever, they take a report of the fact that you even tried to make a report, because everything could potentially be evidence. Hear me out. There's a chance when people go missing that even parents do it. Now, I know that's probably not the case here, but do you see why police make records of everything, even when you try to make a report? And the fact that nobody went to document this, very, very odd, very odd.
And that was, we met an officer, it was after midnight. Right? Yeah, it was somewhere after midnight. Met him in the McDonald's parking lot, gave him the information. He was just like, okay, thanks. I was like, like, where is the urgency? Mm-hmm. And so, as far as we know, there were no boats on the water that night. We actually, his high school football coach, Coach Bramlett, texted Elmore that morning. He said, hey, man, I got a boat. Because, again, we don't have boats. Let me make that very clear. We do not have a boat. We're not boating people.
Really quick, because I have to interject again. I find it very odd that these people that claim to be Warren's brothers, that all have boats. I'm sorry, not Warren, Nolan's brothers, that most of them, not most of them have boats, but they have boats available to them. Didn't want to stop their partying, didn't stop their sleep schedule, didn't do anything to offer assistance after you were so concerned about Nolan going missing that you even called your friends in the Coast Guard. Again, a coach had to call his dad the next morning being like, yo, I heard like Nolan might be missing. Let's go out and look. Don't you think that's odd? It's weird. It's weird. It's cold-blooded too, but let's keep.
We don't do water like that, okay? So Coach Bramlett's like, hey, I got a boat. So we was like, great, let's go. We're on the water. We go out there. We walk the island. Cell phone works perfectly fine. I actually had almost an entire conversation with my grandmother, who was in a panic as we're walking this island looking for anything.
I just want to pause there. The cell phone worked fine because in the reporting, there's been so much reporting that there's poor cell phone reception. And this is some of the disputes that we have about that night. Dad, feel free to jump in here because they're saying he met this young lady, Katie, and that he stayed back. According to the reporting, Katie is saying no. He said he was going to go with his friends. According to the reporting, the friends say, no, he left us his phone because there was no reception. Dad, have you found any consistencies? Have you spoken directly with any of his friends?
Why is Amazon paying me $20,000 a month? Well,
Okay,
I
hold
make
on.
this kind of money.
So, yes, we got to watch ads, but hold on. We'll mute them. Hold on. Okay, so let's take this intermission. Again, this is all very strange. It's all very, let's skip this ad. Can we go? Okay, let's go back.
Consistency was you call me and tell me my son stayed on the island to talk to a girl. My son would never do that. That's not in his character. I didn't raise none of my kids to do that. The second thing is you say he doesn't have his phone. He doesn't leave his phone. I would wake up sometimes in the morning and Nolan would have his phone here right in my face. And I'm waking up cussing and fussing like, boy, you don't get the camera on my face. And he just laughing and giggling and stuff like that. So there's twice. To me, there's two lies that he told me as a father. Like I said, we went on the island. And actually, a classmate of mine called me that morning as we were going out to the island with Nolan's coach. He's like 40 miles away. He calls and, hey man, I got the boat. Me and my boys, we're gonna go out there and he'll.
So pause on this because, again, I want to harp on what he said. One, I don't think that Warren or whoever understood, and also A Grant 06, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. I don't think that these boys that told their parents stuff understood the dynamics and relationship in families, especially Black families. I know when I was 18, my mama didn't give me, and dad, they didn't give me space to breathe. We're not really into people spending the night at the house. If you are, you call a million times. Staying over the night with a girl at an island, it just sounds out of character, okay? Also, with the other stuff, Nolan left his phone when they said Nolan doesn't leave his phone. Nobody leaves the phone. And in Horn Island, right? If he was planning on going back on another person's boat, he would have taken his phone and put it on that boat. If he was too drunk to do that, as they seem to be implying, why would you leave your friend who was that drunk to do whatever? Anyway, they said it because it was drowning. They were sinking, but the boat didn't move at all and was anchored on land between 431. And here's a funny thing. And this is why they asked for the sea tow records. And this is what I think the boys didn't count on. I'm not saying the boys are responsible for anything. I'm just saying that, like, nothing in the story makes sense, right? But this is what a lot of people that support what the counter narrative didn't count on. When you call CETO, just like when you call 911, right? You know, when the girl was like, what's your coordinates, this and that? Yeah. They can send a text message. Yeah. But they are since Horn Island is federal land and they are a federal service, there are certain rules, regulations, safety, and compliance things that in order for them to operate, they must comply by. When you call CETO, they automatically get your GPS coordinates as soon as the call picks up. So even though they're asking for your coordinates, they have your exact they have your exact GPS coordinates, whether you say them or not. One, it's federal law and compliance. Two, just in case you give them the wrong coordinates, they know where you are and they can track you and get to you safely. Again, there's a lot of things that could happen on the water. I don't think that and again, here's my thing. I think that the fact that there are outside records and logs to prove where people called from and where they were out, I would think that this will be a great relief to the boys. Hear me out, right? I don't understand the friction. I think this will be a great relief to the boys because it will prove that their story is true. So if what you're saying happened and the way you're saying it happened, instead of your lawyers attacking Nolan Wells' mom and calling her a grifter, which goes to the heart of racism, where they think black people really don't care about their kids, in my opinion, right? I think that's what they're implying. It's just weird. Like, what grift? Like, what are you talking about? Do you think they're trying to get rich? Do you think they need to lie to us to get rich, baby? I would donate to that GoFundMe if they wanted to go on a family vacation to Jamaica. Yes, you deserve it. I will donate to that. They don't got to lie to kick it, and they know they don't, right? But my whole point is, I don't understand why. Well, Ben Crump has now subpoenaed. Well, Ahmad and Ben Hart have subpoenaed CETO records. But my question is, why haven't those defense attorneys? Because again, if your clients are where they say they are, if your clients are doing what they say they were doing, then the CETO coordinates that they have, not what you gave them, but what actually, when you call in any emergency services, the GPS data automatically gets recorded. This will prove that everything you're saying is true. And even though you messed up time, everything you're saying is actually true. You know? Oh, Jamie has a comment. She said, being that it's a small town, I'm shocked nothing from the autopsy has been leaked. I think, well, Jamie, you bring a good point, but I think the reason nothing from the autopsy has leaked is because it can't support an accidental drowning narrative. I think that's what the problem is. Because I think if it could, it would have leaked. But again, I think these subpoenas are very good for the boys because it will prove that they were where they said they were doing what they said they were doing, and now they have a physical record. So why aren't they showing that data? They could easily get it. Anyway, let's keep going. It's very odd. It's very odd. That's what I'm saying. It's odd.
If you look, I didn't call him. He called me. And we're going to start on this end. Well, I said, well, we're probably going to start on the other end. So me, my wife, Coach Bramley, and a high school classmate of mine were the only we were the first ones out there looking.
So they were the only ones looking. Okay, that's fine. But again, I go back to I would think the boys would want to help this investigation because the sooner the truth comes out, the sooner like all the suspicion of whatever or anger will go away. It's odd to me that they don't want, because actually assisting in the research of what happened to Nolan will make everybody's life better, but maybe not. Let's keep going. I find it odd that his brothers, that called his mom and called the Coast Guard, are not up looking for him, aren't the slightest bit worried. Let's keep going.
Like I said, we docked the boat, got out the boat, walked on the island. She had a whole conversation with her grandmother on the island. Got back on the boat, went back around the island. I guess that would be the north side, facing the Gulf of Mexico. I get another phone call. So my phone worked fine. So this whole thing about not having phone service, I don't know. I don't know if it's the carrier or what, but ours worked fine. I think those around maybe 8 o'clock.
Yeah, because we finished up around.
Who was it? Jackson County or the?
Yeah, Jackson County Sheriff.
Finally showed up.
Yeah.
A couple of boats, they finally showed up. And by that time, I was like, he's not out here. I was more focused that he was at someone's house.
That was the
So, that.
Now, he was even focused that Nolan was at somebody's house, but who started that narrative? Warren did, according to him and Officer Tatum. Keep in mind also, he did say that cell phones worked on the west side and the north side of Horn Island. And keep in mind, remember what I told you a while back? Nolan's body was not bloated. Because it was not bloated, that means it never sunk down to the ocean and that he was floating above water that whole time. And keep in mind that a body floating above water is very easy to spot. And keep in mind, not only were they searching, but the police showed up and was searching, and the Cajun Navy And I believe the MDR were flying drones around, all looking around Horn Island. And why couldn't they find a body that was floating on the surface? Because it's clear from it not being bloated that he never went sunk down to the bottom. So he was floating in. And let's not also forget, by their own things, it's a washing machine current out there. So you don't get flushed out the sea and then float back in. The washing machine keeps you kind of like in a circle on the top of the water, and then it can go in, but it doesn't go past the washing machine. Again, is it odd? Yeah. Is it strange? Yes. Should the police have looked more? Yeah. Is it almost statistically impossible that his body couldn't be seen? I don't know. It's looking like it, but let's continue.
That's where my hopes and feelings were. So we left. The county stayed out there. My friend, he stayed out there because he called. He was like, well, we're going to stay out here a little bit longer. I said, okay, I appreciate it. So we leave. Then I would say maybe a couple hours later, my friend calls me back and he said, well, we're going to give it and go. But he said, look, I can gas the boat back up. And if you want to go back out there, we can go back out there. I said, I don't want to go back out to the island. I have a feeling that he's not there. And I don't want to go back to the island. So he said, he said, well, if you do, we can go right now. I said, don't worry about it. I appreciate you coming out there. But he said,
Okay, so pause right there because this is very important. But also, Jamie makes a good point. She said toxicology reports take 8 to 12 weeks. Next week will be 8 weeks. Maybe the family will hear something soon. I don't know, because the DA announced a couple of weeks ago, I think, that the autopsy was complete. An autopsy can only be complete when toxicology reports are actually turned in. So whatever's going on with the toxicology reports that the that the coroner ordered, they've already gotten it back, because how else could they say the autopsy was complete? And as far as the toxicology reports for Nolan's family, I'm sure it's already back. However, there are certain things they need from the first autopsy to share with the second one. You see what I'm saying? All right, let's keep going. Hold on. Hold on.
at that time, the helicopters were out there, more Coast Guard, more people were out there. So we get back on land, and as far as the keys, was that night? Or was it?
That was that night.
That was the night the call. Okay, let me back up. As far as getting the car back, after we gave our report to Jackson County, the sheriff department that night, we were trying to figure out who to get a report to. We had a friend in the family that located his phone. We wasn't there to get the phone, but apparently there was some kind of friction with getting his phone.
Yeah.
We don't know what the friction
So
was.
the phone and the key were at the same location, which was Jack's house.
Okay.
And again, all of these kids share their locations on Snapchat. And so she was like, hey, I can go pick his phone up, not thinking that his car is there, you know, which she stopped everything she was doing. Her and the boys, they went out. Like, we were all out searching for him that night. And yeah, like Elmore was saying, there was an issue, some type of friction. The cops ended up coming and they left. And so then kind of the same thing when we came to pick up the key. Elmore went up there asking for the key, didn't know where the key was, and all of a sudden we know where the key is.
But see, hold on. But see, this is another thing that bothered me too. When we got to the house, you know, it was some of his other friends were there, you know, and they were, you know, beating on the door like, "What Nolan there? What Nolan there?" You know, beating on the door trying to get in the house. So I walk up to the door and I'm calming them down, because for one, okay, you're loud. Two, you're in these people's house. So if you tear these people's house up, that's gonna be a whole nother issue. I don't want y'all bothering that. And three, I need you guys to calm down, and I need them to kind of trust me as being the adult so I can.
Now, this is an interesting picture, because whatever they say that goes on in Ocean Springs, and Ocean Springs going to have Ocean Springs back, it seemed like the black people, Nolan's black friends, already on some, oh, hell no, something's not adding up. To the point that the dad had to come and be like, y'all, calm down. We need them to trust us. They already knew something was up. And I will say this for everybody saying, oh my God, we got to trust our own, not trust our own, but we got to be careful to leave our kids, around people that aren't black. That's not. Listen, yes, listen, it's America. It's definitely the South, but anywhere in America with the racism and the way the cops, you guys realize that when the Klan got disbanded, they went into law enforcement, right? They are the new slave catchers, for better or worse, right? Yeah, there's some good cops, but let's not act like who is running it. The same way the Klan decided, I think 6 years ago, that instead of law enforcement, they were going to focus on getting their recruits into the American school education system, the school to prison pipeline. Yeah, let's wake that up. Let's wake that up. Now you really even got to watch the way teachers are identifying like your little 5-year-old as a behavior problem. They need to be medicated. Oh my God, school police officers. So racism in America, which I think a lot of foreigners don't understand, is not somebody burning a cross on your lawn anymore. It's somebody getting your 5-year-old arrested as a behavior problem, trying to get them drugged up. And then they have marks on them as they go through the school district. And by the time they're 8th grade, now they're in juvie, working in like a privately funded thing for slave labor. And then when they get out of school, if they even make it out, now they go from juvenile hall to wake it up. The reason we call it institutional racism is because once they outlawed slavery, they were like, now how else can we oppress and keep them in? Even let's wake it up. The reason why immigration got passed in 1964, I don't understand why a lot of immigrants voting for Trump don't understand that the reason you are allowed in this country, I think it was 1964, 1969. Before that, they didn't want any immigrants in this MFing country. Certainly not non-white immigrants. But the reason that bill was passed is because the Civil Rights Act was actually passed. And you can read the documents. They wanted to put a barrier class to ensure that black people are always on the bottom. And the immigrants that came, and I'm not saying being an immigrant is easy. I know everybody has their own struggle. I get it. This isn't the oppression Olympics. But I am just saying we need to actually be honest about why things are structured the way they are. When we got equal rights and we were like, yeah, everybody should be equal, we didn't realize that they were trying to make a buffer class to still keep us on the bottom. Why? I think that, honestly, let me just ponder. I honestly think that, well, I'll just say it. I think the reason why they created it is because people say it's guilt. I don't think it's guilt, right? Because people that screw you over never, I think it's a deep fear. I think it's a deep fear. I think they deeply have a fear that if we ever get the type of power that they try to keep from us, that we would make them and their MFing descendants pay for what they did to our descendants. I think they have a deep fear that we will be like, F reparations. This is my land, my thing. My grandfather built this house. Get your ass out. I think they're afraid that we will treat them the way they treated us and that we will take back. I mean, look what's happened in South Africa. They up there crying that their land's being stolen. You mean the land you stole 2 generations ago? Get out of my face. But anyway, I'm not going to talk world politics. I do think that immigrants as a whole, and I'm not talking about the people, I'm not talking about the people that are aware of what's happening. Y'all already know. I'm talking about the people that somehow think that when black people are complaining, marching, screaming, oh, you're just making a fuss. Do you not know that we have done everything that you guys are trying? We tried respectability politics. We tried to be the model minority. We tried to this. We tried to that. And MF in time, they screwed us over. We know the face of the devil. And if more people would start listening, well, a lot of people's pain and suffering wouldn't be happening right now. But nobody wants to listen because they somehow think they cracked the code of getting along and being respected. Well, white supremacy, when at the end of the day, that's a construct. But this brings me back to my original point, right? The whole point of like, oh, I do believe in small towns. They do this if you're a different race. I also think they do this if you're poor. How many small white towns has somebody's daughter who is white and poor been raped, been abused, been whatever. And then the whole town covers it up because they're good boys and nothing should happen to them. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think it is something about like small towns and power. And power crushes everybody. And that's why I don't understand people that are white supremacists and racist, because most of the white supremacists and racists are like in very bad situations. And they don't realize that it's like, yeah, even if we weren't around, they would still crush. But you know what? I digress. I digress. I do think we need to all stick together. And I think people need to realize because we know the nature of the beast. We have seen the ugliest form of the beast. And you should actually listen and learn from us. Because at the end of the day, no matter how many good faces they put on it, we know the enemy. But let's keep going. Sorry to go off a tangent. Sorry.
Get something out of them. So I get them out the house, and then Jax finally comes down the stairs, I guess in the room. Hair all messed up like he just woke up, whatever. I said, look, I'm Nolan's father. His car's outside. I need to get his car and all his personal effects that may be left over with. And he goes, oh man, Nolan was like my brother. I said, well, Nolan was like my brother. I said, well, if Nolan was like your brother, would you please go and get everything of his so I can get his car, I can go home. So he walks off. 2 or 3 minutes later, he come back. I don't see the keys. Okay. So I leave out the house, go back outside, stand by the car. During that time, one of the guys that was in the house, one of the other friends, he was on the phone with a girl who was apparently there with them earlier that day. And she was telling him that his keys was on top of the Xbox in his room. So he goes back up to the door by himself, and we're still out by the car. And lo and behold, here comes the keys. So now to me.
Sorry. Question. He was on the phone for girl that was over there earlier today. And somehow the girl remembered where Nolan put his keys, but they couldn't find them. Okay, maybe. But was that girl Katie? Was that girl Katie? And if it was, right? How come they didn't tell the parents that? But, let's continue. Let's continue. Is it odd? Yes. Is it strange? Yes. Does it mean anything? I don't know. But
You lied to me 3 times. I don't believe nothing that you tell me from here on out.
And this is Jax.
This is Jax.
And eventually he does give you the keys.
Yeah, eventually give me
But
the
there was
keys.
friction getting the keys.
Yes. So for one, you tell me my son is on left, still on the island with a girl. 2, you have his phone.
but hold on. Sorry. Okay, last interruption for the next 30 seconds. Listen, I think it's odd that you know that somebody's parents are out there worried sick, wanting anything, blah, 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 blah. And you got friction about returning the stuff. You would think that you guys would want to help. Especially if you see your best friend's parents freaking out. You would think you would want to help as quickly as possible to calm the situation down. Do you see what I'm saying? But no, I guess that's not how they do things in Mississippi.
And 3, you don't give me the keys when I ask. I don't know any father who would believe, just if one of my friends did that. I'm gonna be cordial with you, but I'm gonna watch you. And
Ben, I want to ask you, because I'm hearing these 2 parents who essentially had to become search and rescue or law enforcement, looking for their own child with such a lack of urgency on behalf of law enforcement. Obviously, we're talking to Black journalists. We can't ignore the ugly racial history of Mississippi. I looked into the demographics of the Jackson County Sheriff Department. It's quite asymmetrical, but also just the general attitude and the lack of value when it comes to Black life. Does this sound like a normal process for when an 18-year-old goes missing to you? What holes have you seen in your looking into this case?
Tiffany, that was the question that Christine and Elmore had when they first called us. They wanted the truth of what happened to their 18-year-old son, Nolan Wells. And they had concerns whether they were going to get a fair and impartial investigation. And from that day to this one, it has been the same objective, to have truth, transparency, and find out what happened to Nolan. They said we want a thorough investigation because when they found Nolan, they expressed to me that the sheriff had already said no foul play. And they was like, no, my son, he knows how to swim. Our son is a college athlete. Our son is in great shape. We don't believe that he just drowned and nobody knows nothing. Nobody saw nothing. I mean, there are about 300, 400 people on the island. And so that's what they were saying. We want to know what happened. We want truth. We want transparency. We don't want his death to be swept under the rug.
Well, just so to make sure the audience and the people watching at home know, so they did declare very quickly, as you're noting, that he drowned when his body was recovered on July 6th. Mom and Dad and you all know that he is a student athlete, able to swim. On July 4th on Horn Island, it was very crowded. Certainly the suggestion is someone would have seen a child in distress. There is going to be the convening of a grand jury. Now, the DA of this area, Angel Myers McElrath, is a very out loud, proud Republican. If there is a U.S. attorney appointed to this case, it will likely be a Trump appointee. I'm just curious, Ben, from you and Rev, I think we have to be very candid here. What concerns do you have about the racial animus that we are seeing so much of play in this case?
Well,
you or Rev, whoever.
All I'll say, and then defer to Rev, you want to believe that this is a child, that everybody is going to do their level best to find out what happened so these broken-hearted parents will know what happened to their child. In time, we've seen Christine and the family be attacked just for asking questions. What happened to my child? Trying to say, no, we want to question this part of the investigation, that part of the investigation, because day one you said no foul play, but tell me now, what are you doing to be able to get us to the truth? And that is, it causes them sleepless nights. We talk at night. And so trust but verify. We are trying to cooperate everything we can do to say, hey, we want to help, but we want you to give them a thorough investigation. We want you to do for him what you would do for your child.
Rev, I'm going to come to you in a sec, but you brought up something, Ben, about attacks. And certainly as journalists, we have a keen eye, and I have noticed that the narrative around this story has shifted to the threats that are going to the young men who was with Nolan. They've hired attorneys who previously represented Donald Trump in cases. They've gone on very MAGA-friendly podcasts, and I just want to make sure that we keep the main thing, the narrative to the victim, to the actual child who died. And I'm curious, Christine, if you can weigh in on what threats have you and your family experienced?
So there have been a big smear campaign.
Sorry about that. Pay attention right now to the threats. By the way, this interview is happening at the National Association of Black Journalists. Maybe they have been doing the Lord's work forever. They are the reason that we even have our side represented in mainstream media. And keep in mind, when it comes to the National Black Association of Black Journalists, a lot of people criticize them like, oh, you guys aren't this, you guys aren't. Do you know how hard they fight in editorial rooms, in newsrooms, and everywhere to try to get these stories out? Sometimes they don't win because they are up against an institution that wants this to go away. So again, they always do the God's work, and they are fighting against institutional injustice, even in their own newsrooms, press rooms. So shout out to the National Association of Black Journalists. But they're giving this interview to the National Association of Black Journalists so the Black journalists can take this information and disseminate it to the best of their abilities. And even if they can't get the channels and the stations and the papers that they work for to actually let it be printed, they can go to their own social media platforms and spread the truth. Okay. But this is a very important part, because why there have been 3 arrests in the Nolan Walls case, they've all been for people out of state making threats to Judge Ashley Cole. And the FBI found these threats credible. Nobody should be threatening anybody. I want everybody alive, well, and present to be there to witness the day that the truth comes out about what happened to Nolan. And this should make the boys, Judge Ashley Cole, and everybody happy. Because when the truth comes out, everybody will see. Those boys love Nolan and they're innocent. I don't understand why it seems like they're like, I don't know. Again, maybe they do things in Mississippi, but listen to what the family has endured. And from what it sounds like, the DA, the police chief, and the feds are doing nothing. But that's what it sounds like to me. You listen to me and tell me what you think it sounds like.
It's not only professionally, but personally for me. And
they attacked your nursing license.
Yes, so it started out with 1-star reviews of people saying they saw me. My office verified that these were incorrect. And then it went so much as to someone contacted the Board of Nursing, and then that opened the investigation for the professional misconduct. There was no evidence presented for that claim. And the investigator I spoke with, he said, we have to do our due diligence. I said, I understand it. I respect it. He was like, I'm sorry it's coming at this time. I was like, no, I get
When that happens. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Sorry, guys. Now pause. I finally read the chat. Sorry. All right, I'm back. Okay. Now pause, okay? Because what was I saying? I know the audio's back on, you guys. Sorry about that, right? My mic was going dead, so I'm trying to conserve energy, I'm a yapper. So my mic goes dead, so I have to conserve energy, right? Okay. You guys can hear me now. Right? So anyway, I find it odd that Christine's livelihood was put in jeopardy, right? Her livelihood was put into jeopardy, which is being a nurse, the way she can support her family or help support, 2-parent household, 2-parent incomes, thank God, right? But also taking away somebody that does a lot of good, right? Taking away something that does like a lot of good. Okay, that's good. What's up, Jamie? She just sent a picture of Panda. Such a cutie. Okay, now there's sound. There's sound now, right? Wait, you can't hear me? Can you guys hear me? Put a 1 in the comments if you guys can hear me. I'm trying to make a really good point. Can y'all hear me? Put a 1 in the comments if you can hear me. Put a 1 in the comments if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear? Okay, thank you. Listen, I'm a professional yapper. Start going through my library. Run these ad dollars up so I can actually afford good mics. Okay, so anyway, let's keep going. I find it odd. Let me just get to my point. The duplicity, right? The way that nobody can question what happened to Nolan. Nobody can do this and that. But yet, Miss Christine can have her license put in jeopardy. And even though there's no proof behind the claim, they have to do their due diligence. And what did she say? Yeah, I understand. It's an investigation because they had to do their due diligence. Why? Because nobody is bigger than the MFN program. Yeah, you seem nice. Yeah, you seem cool. Yeah, you're going through a tragedy. But this person reporting you might actually be telling the truth because nobody's bigger than the MFN program. The program is we investigate. And if you have nothing to worry about, then it's cool. Again, why is it that on the other side, any questions at all will not be tolerated? Why is it that Miss Christine is not above the program and must play along and endure an investigation, right? But on the other side, they can't. We can't even ask questions. Moon crickets told y'all to be quiet. All that chirping. Again, it's a rule for thee, but not for me. And it's crazy that they expect her to go. And for anybody in the comments being like, oh, she's not really black, you guys got to stop. I don't know if you guys are not actually American, but you guys got to stop. There's a one drop rule that flows through. I don't care what, as black people, we look at her and say, oh, she's half a. You really think in Mississippi, they looking at her being like, oh, that's a Filipino woman. Like, can y'all stop? Can y'all, not y'all, but can the people in the back, can you stop it? Literally, let's keep going. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Get it, do what you have to do, because I know who I am. I know what kind of care I give to my patients. I know the relationship that we have. And I'm grateful that my patients, a lot of them, are still trusting and loving in the care that they know they're going to get with me. And so these attacks are not going to, it's not going to break me. I have to find out. We have to find out what happened to Nolan. That is the only question we've ever asked. We've never blamed anyone. We've never tried to smear anyone. I know I heard something about the picture. That picture was sent to me because
This is a picture of him on the boat.
On the boat with the people.
Yes.
And what it was is they were like, the person was like, Miss Christine, the information is incorrect. This is what he was wearing. Because initially he was in black shorts, which again, that is the information I received from Warren, verbally and via text. When she sent me that picture, I was like, oh, completely different color. These are like a blue-gray short. So we had to correct that. But I'm grateful. We are grateful to all of you. Thank you for keeping our son's story alive. And thank you so much, Tiffany, for having us.
I think that's part of our assignment here, our responsibility. So often in newsrooms, we have to defend and define Black life and defend and define our own humanity. And so it makes a difference. The same way in other newsrooms, when you see someone and you feel like they're familiar, that so happens as they resegregate newsrooms and lay off Black journalists en masse, that goes away. So the people in this room have a keen interest in this story because they see your humanity, and that's what we center in this conversation. Rev, put this in historical context for us, because as I look at Mississippi, I don't have to tell you of all people some of the immediate thoughts that surface for us here.
Well, when I got the call from Ben Crump,
I think this is what got the threat to Al Sharpton to sue him. And I said, oh, they just talking. Because Al Sharpton, love him or hate him, I think it did come out that he was a Fed informant. Not saying there's anything wrong with the Feds, but, it is what it is, right? But he serves a purpose, I know him and Bill Clinton looks like they got on Ozempic together around the same time. I don't know what it is about, like, once men hit 60, 65, they want to be skinny mini, they like, what waist, So like when he turned into a bobblehead, it was a little bit let me stop. I have a lot of respect for Al Sharpton and the work that he's done. I know he is a very controversial figure, and that's fine. I know he is a bobblehead aficionado, just like Bill Clinton. Again, men, if you are over 65, weight is health. Let those pounds stay on there because at least you look sturdy, right? This man is in like a slim, medium size 16 boys husky. What? Okay, let me start with the jokes. I'm sorry, right? uh, my whole point of the matter is he is a very controversial figure. But that said, it does not detract from the fact of he brings awareness, he brings a spotlight, and he brings a respect and gravitas to every situation he is in. That said, he is not somebody to be trifled with professionally. And the fact that they couldn't get Ben Crump off the thing, because Ben Crump, literally, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't move to Airbnb in Ocean Springs, like, you need my forwarding address. But the fact that they moved on from Ben Crump, because they're like, he ain't never scared, and they moved over to Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton is looking like, first of all, I don't even know y'all. And second of all, please send this lawsuit. But why are they doing this? I don't think they actually plan to sue Al Sharpton because he's going to explain why. But I think they're doing this to poison the jury pool. It's a very aggressive tactic, but I do believe it's going to backfire because this is one of the reasons why it should be moved out of the Gulfport federal thing and moved into Jacksonville or Hyatt's. But let's keep going. All right. Forgive me, God. I'm sorry. I just had to make a joke about Reverend Al, but I got a lot of respect for him. But the bobblehead. Okay, let's keep going. Sorry.
And he had the parents connected. And they told me the story. I'd not heard the story. I heard something about some in Mississippi. But when I heard the details, the thing that jarred me from a civil rights point of view, and I've been working, Ben has come National Action Network for 20-some years with a case, and then from there on and on and on. And if it's not a civil rights position, we don't get involved. When they told me that law enforcement said there is no foul play, that's a prejudgment. And I said, wait a minute. They said, the parents repeated to me on the phone, I said, they said it was, this 2 days after it happened. And how do you investigate and there's no foul play and you don't even know what happened yet? So that's what perked my interest. So I said that, well, we'll be involved and we'll help to the best of our ability. Talked another day or two. I said, y'all come to New York, we'll have a national press conference. That's how we broke the story. The first national press conference they did at our headquarters, National Action Network. And then all of a sudden, it was all of this attack for getting involved. And so, and they asked me to do the eulogy. I said, we'll take care of the funeral. Tyler Perry called me and said, no, I'll take care of it. So the thing that bothered me, one, it was prejudgment. Second, the parents of the guys that were with him started talking about they was going to sue us for getting involved. And sue, I don't even know the kid's name. So you can't say I defame your son. I don't know your son's name. But I will say this on this stage, I want them to sue me first. And I'll tell you why. No, I'll tell you why. And National Action Network, you serve the papers, because I want to depose your son. If you sue, the plaintiffs are deposed. So rather than us depend on a Mississippi DA who's already had people saying it was no foul, let's go to civil court, any kind of court you want to go to, because you can't make this make sense. And direct to your point, Tiffany, as I said in the eulogy that I did, I don't know what happened. The parents never said they knew what happened. They never said it was racial. I don't know it was racist, but they don't know it wasn't racist. You don't know what happened. So why are you prejudging it unless something is there you don't want out? Second thing is, you know, and I said this to Elmer and Kristen, I had hurt my knee. I had torn my meniscus. And when I tore it, I told Ben the truth. I did it working out one morning, but I told them I got it because I was on my knees praying too much. But anyway, when they took...
Okay, so he made his own joke. Look at the side eye Big Crump gave him. First of all, shout out to Reverend Al Sharpton for fighting the good fight. Listen, I have a lot of respect for him. Okay? He's a bobblehead for justice. But also, what is up? This is side notes. Shut up. Welcome to Black culture, everybody that's clutching their pearls. Yes, in the middle of tragedy, we will crack jokes on you, okay? But my whole point is the way I said him and Bill Clinton was like, literally, when they started getting dressed, they were like, forever young. I want to be forever. Talking about he tore his meniscus working out. Boy, shut up. 10K steps a day is working out. Shut up. But then look at the little side eye Ben Crump gave him. Like, you was on your knees praying. Reverend Al, again, here's my whole point. He ain't take that exhibit and turn into a bobblehead God, right? Do it like he didn't turn into a bobblehead and get a size 28 medium Huskies boys size 16. Remember, was he not dating? Did he date Lisa Ray for a second? Listen. Anyway, this isn't about him and his personal life, but like you was on your knees praying. Sure. Look at this little side eye Ben Crump gave him. Like, boy, if you don't stop, but let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Me to say they may have to do surgery. The first thing they said is, well, we got to get your medical history from your primary doctor. I said, okay. So I said in the eulogy that I don't know what happened, but I got your history in Mississippi. And the history tells me black boy go out with 3 white kids come back. There's a blurred story on what happened. Now y'all all hostile and all upset. Didn't have the keys, but then you had the keys. Some about this don't make sense given your history. And I'm going to stay on this until we find out what happened. It may be nothing, but we're not going to leave that up to chance with people that are distorted. We're going to stay on this case. And lastly, since they want to talk about lawsuits, one of the things tying your morning together, Tiffany, they may come back, as you suggested, playing right-wing politics with this, with the local prosecutor, maybe even with the federal people. But if we have a change in January and there is a Democratic House, I said that if Hakeem becomes the speaker, he needs to have the chair of judiciary subpoena them to the Judiciary Department, testify. No, that's what this vote means. We need to have a check and balance of government so that we got somewhere to go. We can't depend to go to Trump's Justice Department. So we need to really mobilize so people like these 2 parents can protect their children.
Welcome to my bedroom. This is
Okay, yes, we do have commercials. We have the unpaid YouTube. Hold on, let's see if we can skip this. Oh, so that's it. Okay, so, okay, hold on. Ugh. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So we saw that. Okay. Listen, I apologize for the bobblehead comment. But again, I have a lot of respect for Reverend Al, and he said some truth. We need to get out and vote. We need to do what they can. Don't ever let them convince you that your vote doesn't count, because if it didn't, they wouldn't be doing so much to take it away. Get out there. But also, I admire his tenacity. I admire what he's donated to the movement, to the struggle, and the fact that no matter what you think about him, he is a tireless megaphone to literally amplify whatever's going on. And the fact that now they started to go at him and not Ben Crump is saying something. But you guys, I think mostly what I wanted to do, and I know this was a long live, but I am really I wanted you guys to hear the whole interview, because when you hear the whole interview out of Nolan's parents' mouth, not the sound bites, not that, I think it gives you a deeper understanding about what was going on, what happened, and how they. Hold on a second. Why do I have Joy Reid on my screen? Hold on. I think it. All right. I think it. I think it gives us a greater understanding
Did y'all
of
catch this?
You
One
saying
second.
during that?
I think it gives us a greater understanding of what happens, what's going on, and everything. And that's why I wanted to actually sit through the whole interview, because I know that you guys are super, super intelligent. You guys are like literally Nancy Drew would it do. And I just wanted to discuss the whole interview with you guys and what happened. Again, a lot of stuff isn't adding up. This federal civil wrongful death suit is going to break open a lot, have a lot of subpoena power. Again, people say, "Oh my God, they're aligned with Trump's presidency." I want to know if they're willing to go to bat for Ocean Springs. I mean, yeah, it's a good old boy network, but when it goes to Washington and they're worried about all this other stuff, who the hell is putting themselves on the line for Ocean Springs? But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, listen. At the end of the day, you guys have what I'm basing my opinion on, and I want you guys to base your own opinions on that and tell me what you honestly think. I'll try to go live tomorrow morning. It's like really late. I'll try to go live tomorrow morning to. I'll try to go live tomorrow morning to discuss in detail, because there's a few other things that I actually want to discuss. But for now, let me know in the comments what you think. But again, nothing's adding up. Nothing makes sense. And it's just sad to me that a Black family, and yes, race does make a difference, is being besmirched and harassed and bullied and threatened, in my opinion, all because they just want to know what happened to their son. They haven't even said who did what. They just want to know what happened. And even that is too much and seems to be being punished. All right. Listen, shout out to Ben Crump. Shout out to Al Sharpton. Shout out to definitely Nolan Wall's parents, and shout out to you guys for keeping the story alive and demanding justice. Because again, cover-ups can only happen when people aren't looking. And at the end of the day, the bare minimum we deserve as a people in 2026 is for you to give us an actual answer on how someone died. And taking it to grand jury and thinking it's going to stay sealed forever, it's just not going to cut it anymore. It's just not going to cut it. Anyway, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you guys. Oh, wait, let me make sure I don't have any super chats, because I'm always leaving while somebody is super chatting. Nope, I'm all caught up in super chat. Thank you, everybody. Soldier for God, One Love Revolutionary, Pretty Long Legs, J Big Ant, Valentine TV, as usual, thank you. And A Grant 06, thank you so much for the super chats.